Hi everybody, nice to see you. This is Judy from Coffee, Cookies, and Books, and this video is my last video of 2024, so I thought I'd leave the end of the year book tag for the end of the year. So if you stick around, we're going to have some fun. Okay, so what I thought I would do is I watched a lot of YouTubers do their 20 questions and end of the year book tag. Some of it is stuff that I might have already covered in my last video, which was my 5 best, 5 worst of the year. But this is just kind of more of a discussion type thing, just some fun about how my reading went. Now, I started my channel at the beginning of October, so my input might be a little different from some other YouTubers, but I still have things to say. And I watched Lucci's Library. I will link her below. I love her channel. She is such a nice, sweet young woman, and I love watching her videos. So when I saw her do her 20 questions, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to take the 20 that she had, and I think she got them from somebody else. It's just kind of, they seem to get passed around. But I'm going to take those 20 questions, and we're going to go over them one by one. So let's start with the first question, which was the most disappointing read of the year. So technically I had 3, but one of them I'm going to hold off on because it actually also falls under a couple of other questions. So we're just going to stick with the 2. One was a soft DNF, which was When the Moon Hatched. I did mention it in my worst video, which I will link that video below. It was just a week ago, so it wasn't that long past, but I mentioned that I tried to read it in ebook form and just found it very much it was convoluted and very difficult to get through. I can't remember how many pages I went through, at least 50, maybe more, and I DNF'd it. I had no intention on going back to it, but then I saw a lot of people reviewing it and how much they loved it and so on and so forth. And I know that when I read the actual physical books, that I get a much different feel for them. So I decided, okay, I'm going to buy it. So I did purchase it, and it's going to go on in my TBR jar, and it may get picked for this year. You know, we'll see how it goes, but I'm going to give it a try again, but in a different format. The other one that I read that I found disappointing, which I also discussed in my video, was the Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Now, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. So it was very much like a 3, which is what I rated it. Not my lowest rating, but definitely one of my bigger disappointments. I'm a huge sci-fi fan. I actually really expected, I don't know, something completely different from it. I did mention in the video why I didn't care for it. My biggest factor being his age, which kind of threw things off for me through the whole book. Doesn't mean I'm not going to continue with the series. I have the second one. We're going to give it a try. It's in my tin, and it's going to get picked. So at some point, don't know if it'll be this year. If it isn't this year, I might go back and read Red Rising again to see if I continue it or not. But yeah, we'll give it a try. So then, Underdog Book of the Year. So this is what I consider to be kind of a book that you read, that you enjoyed, that you didn't even see coming, I guess. And this one was an ebook called Meltdown in Christmas River, and it's a Christmas book, obviously winter book. I didn't expect to even read this. I got it for free off BookBub, and I thought, well, you know what, I'll give this one a try. It's number 10 in a series of 14 books, and I loved it. It's a murder mystery, cozy murder mystery. Absolutely loved it. Gave it 4 stars. I loved it so much that I want to read the rest of them. I want to read the whole collection. Now, the place is called Christmas River. The main character, female character, is Cinnamon Peters. She owns a pie shop in Christmas River. But not all of these stories, from what I can tell when I went through them, all occur at Christmas. So they don't have to be read at Christmas, but this particular one did occur at Christmas. So really loved it. I would highly recommend it. I just want to read the other 13. I liked it so much. Okay, so the next question is a book that was overhyped. And this is one of the books that could have been in most disappointing, but I just feel that it was overhyped. And that is Long Live Evil by Sarah Rees Brennan. And I have not reviewed this one yet. It's going to be in my first review for January 2025. I didn't hate it, but I had a lot of issues with it. And it bothers me that I did, because I loved the premise of the story. It just had so much potential, and it really bothered me that I was so disappointed with it. But, you know, it is one of those things that you just kind of roll with it, I guess. And hopefully, I do think I'm going to continue on with the series, because I liked the way the book ended. It was certainly good, but when I give my review, it'll explain a lot of that. Sorry. Just one of those books. Okay, so then we have a book you loved in the moment but don't think about now. So that would be Legends and Lattes. I loved it when I read it, and it's one of those cozy type stories, and I haven't thought about it since I read it. So it's just one of those ones that, you know, I think there's a lot of books that are like that. I feel like that about a lot of my romance stories, because I do read a lot of romance, and I find that in the moment you really love them, and then afterwards you just move on to the next one. I felt that way about Legends and Lattes. It's not that it was a bad story, it was just an in the moment type book. And I do have the prequel to it, and I will read it, and I'm sure I will enjoy it. And I think he's coming out with another one, which I think is a follow-up to Legend Lattes, and I will read it, because I enjoyed it. So it's not that I hated the book, did not hate the book. So it's just one of those ones that, yeah, you like it and then you're done with it. So that's how I felt about that one. Then favorite couple of the year, coffee. So I did a video, which I will link down below, of my very first featured author video. And it was for Brittney Sahin, and she is a romance. She's like a suspense romance writer. And one of the series that she wrote that I read the entire series this year was Falcon Falls. And actually, I think I read several of them last year and then finished it off this year. But the very first book in the series called The Hunted One, and it was Griffin and Savannah. And I love them as a couple. It was insta-love, which, you know, sometimes I can be a little weird, but I loved how she dealt with it. The other thing was that Savannah was the widow of a member of Stealth Ops, which is another series, but he was never physically on the page because he died, but he appears here and there spattered throughout those books, and it just knowing that this was her second love. Just, yeah, I loved it so much. And this is a couple I will always think about, you know, when I think about really great couples, never mind the fact that Griffin was like super hot and growly, older. I would say in general, most of Brittney's characters do tend to be a little bit on the older side. I think Griffin's in his late 30s, maybe early 40s. I don't know if he's that old, but he's definitely on the older side. And of course, Savannah's up there too because she was married before. And he was a Navy SEAL, so that's one of the things about him. So it's just very, I love how she builds all of her characters. And I love the fact that I can relate to her characters a little bit, even though I'm obviously clearly older than, you know, late 30s. I won't talk about that. But anyway, yeah, so I love them, and I can't say enough about them at all. It was such a great book. Okay, so next question was fave main characters of the year. I really only had one main character, and it was from my favorite book of the year, and he wasn't even the hero of the book, but he was one of them, but not like the main hero, but he was such a great, morally gray character. And that was Detective Miller from Leviathan Wakes. And he was, in the book, he was given a case to look for a missing girl. And that missing girl led him to the other main character in the book, which was Captain Holden. And it's just how he got there, his thought processes, and where it ended at the end of the book. Just my favorite character. And I don't even think that technically he's supposed to be the one that you think of as your favorite character. I think, you know, a lot of people might think of Holden as, and I did like him. I mean, obviously I loved him. He's going to carry on in the rest of the books. And, you know, obviously Miller's character is going to have some impact in the rest of the books as well. But it was just how it all went. And the end of it was a little bit heartbreaking. Yeah, so loved his character so much. And then that then leads to the next question, is the book that you can't stop recommending, and that is Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. The Expanse series, I mean, I loved the book. I loved it. 600 pages of pure genius, okay? I cannot recommend this book enough. Now, you have to like sci-fi. If you don't like sci-fi, you may not like it. I mean, it is very, I think it is a heavy character-driven story, but I find that it balances the sci-fi with the character plot, part of the plot. But the plot drives the characters, obviously. So it's, yeah, I can't even say enough about it. I have all 9 books now, and I will read that entire series. I think I have 2 of them on my 25 must-reads for 2025. Honestly can't wait to continue with the series. And then the book that surprised you, and that was House of Earth and Blood, which is the first Crescent City book. And I think the reason I was surprised is because, in all honesty, I've seen a lot of YouTubers say it was just okay. To me, it was a 4. Now, it wasn't a 5, and the reason it wasn't a 5 is because I felt it was too long, and it didn't need to be. Out of the 800 pages, I think 600 pages I loved. The other 200 I could have done without and wouldn't even blinked. But anyway, it just, yeah, it was a really, really great story. And I am reading book 2 right now, which will be done before well, actually, this video is going up December 30th. It's going to be finished. But as I make this video, I am 525 pages in, so 800-page book. Yeah, I'm loving the second book. I actually like the second book more than the first book, which I think is not a normal take. Most people say the first book was better than the second book. I'm of the opinion I like the second book better. It's just my thing. But yeah, so it was the book that surprised me the most. Also, I'm not a heavy romantasy reader, so I think this was sort of my first foray. And because I don't really love YA or new adult as much, somebody recommended reading Crescent City first. And plus, I love the urban setting. Yeah, everything about it, just so great. Such a good book. Both books so far. Yeah. Okay, so then the next question is your new favorite author that you discovered in 2024. So I actually have a list of them, believe it or not. And that's because I think previously to kind of getting into YouTube and watching a lot of YouTubers, I had the tendency to read a lot of the same books all the time. So this has really broadened my scope, and I love it so much. So I'm just going to mention a few of the ones that came to mind right away. And they're, I wouldn't say that they're all my favorites, but they're authors that I've enjoyed, the books I'm going to enjoy reading them going forward. So the first one's Lucy Foley. She is a mystery writer, and I read Midnight Feast. Absolutely love that book. So looking forward. Second one is Penn Cole. I read Spark of the Everflame and Glow of the Everflame, which I have not reviewed yet, which I'm going to. That like one of my best books for 2024. Sarah J. Maas, I just mentioned. She's new to me. James S.A. Corey, brand new. He's won Leviathan Wakes. Can't say enough about it. Pierce Brown. Well, I didn't love Red Rising. I loved the concept of Red Rising, and definitely interested in continuing on with the series. That one. Peyton Corinne. So I had not read any of her books, and I read the first one in print unsteady, and then I read The Ark of Unloved, and just I loved the second book so much. And then Jennifer Lynn Barnes, the first of the Natural series I read and loved that, and the 3 books that continue that series are in my must-reads for 2025. So very much looking forward to continuing on with all those authors and discovering a whole ton more authors. So it was really a good year. Okay, happiest read of the year. That was the Ex Hex. Now, that was the single cutest story I think I read all year. It's a couple, and they're both witches, and it happens at Halloween. And I got the first book through BookBub, so I think it was free, or it was like 99 cents, something like that. And I loved it so much. And there are brothers that were the brothers of the main male character in the Ex Hex and his brothers, and they're all like grumpy. So I really want to read the other books now. I love that book so much, and it was just such a nice way to kind of finish off the Halloween season. So, and I did review that. It's in one of my previous reviews. I think I've only done one review previous to the one that's coming up now, but yeah, I was in my last one. I love that book so much. And then the most frustrating book I read in 2024 was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. Now this is just my opinion, and I didn't like the book. I kind of read through it and thought, what am I reading? It just didn't hold my interest. I found it boring. I found the plot boring. I found the characters boring. The 2 main characters I didn't mind, but I hated everybody else. Don't even remember it. So that would have actually fallen under the one where you forgot as soon as you read it. Pretty much, I don't remember. A lot of people said the second one is better. Now, I'm kind of the opinion that if you have to struggle through the first book, I'm not sure that, I don't even know how to express this. It's like, if I hated the first book, do I really want to read the second book? So I'm struggling a little bit with whether or not I want to continue. I do have them. I have the second and third books because I bought the three as a pair. It was a fairly reasonable deal to get the group together. But I'm reluctant to continue on. If it comes up, I'll put it on my TBR. But if I get 100 pages in and I don't like it, I'm not continuing. And that's just, how it's going to go. I don't like to talk negatively. I don't review my DNFs. I will just say it was a DNF and that's it. So anyways, we'll see how that goes. Okay. So then the longest books I read this year, well, that's easy. Crescent City. I mean, 1 and 2, both 800 pages. Frankly, didn't think that they had to be 800 pages, but even the second book, while I find it had more building action through the whole book, like I just found that it just had less dead periods. There were some things in the book that I didn't think had to be there, but at the same time, I liked both. So 800 pages, and I bitched a little bit about the 800 pages, but we'll see. I don't know that I have anything else other than the third Crescent City that has to get read in 2025. I don't think I have anything else on my TBR that hits 800 pages. So I don't have anything physically in my library that hits that. So, maybe maybe the Way of Kings. Yeah, Brandon Sanderson. That's the only Brandon Sanderson that I have that I think that's that long. I do have the Mistborn series, but they're not that long. So we'll see what happens going into 2025. It should be interesting. But yeah, those were the longest books. And then the shortest reads. Well, I had two novellas that I read that were both from Brittney Sahin, and one was The Lost Letters. That was by her and co-written by Joseph Cannata, who essentially was her model for Jesse, who is the male hero in that. And then, and that was like a follow-up to The Broken One, which is one of the main novels in the Falcon Falls Security series. And then the other one was also from her, and that was On the Line. It was the part of the Dublin Nights series, and it was between book 1 and book 2. And it had to do with Anna and Adam's wedding. Both of them were okay. I think there were 3-star reads for me. I'm kind of not really a novella person, but I do have a few more novellas that are kicking around that might end up on my TBR. So we'll see how it goes. And then the book you haven't stopped thinking about, and I don't even have to say it, Leviathan Wakes. Can't stop thinking about that one. Love that one so much. I'm hoping. I put the two, book 2 and book 3 on my must-reads for 2025 because I absolutely want to continue on with the series so much so. And then an unpopular book you loved. Well, I think the lowest rated book, because I went through and I just kind of did a quick check of the ones that I read, and the lowest rated was Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley, which even though it was a 3.6 on Goodreads, it still ended up in the Choice Awards, and I just really loved it. I liked, I was surprised that I actually liked the multiple points of view. I wasn't sure that I was going to like that. It kind of was a little confusing at the beginning, but once I got into the book, I was like, it had me hooked. And I loved how the twist and how it ended. I had no idea exactly who. I don't want to say too much. I'm not going to say too much. Anyways, I just, I loved it. I thought it was a really great book. And then the cringiest book I read this year. and I don't like to say it, but it was The Royal by Susan Stoker. Now, typically I like Susan's books. Susan's very much like Brittney, Sahin. She writes suspense romance books, and one of her series this year, I've read quite a few of them, and The Royal was one of the ones that I had on my TBR. And it was like a Cinderella retelling, and I'm kind of not a fairy tale retelling kind of reader. It just really, it was a little too much. It was just too much. It was, yeah. I didn't mind the two characters, but I thought the whole thing was just kind of like, yeah, didn't enjoy it. Okay, now, the book with the most unique concept. So here is where Long Live Evil by Sarah Rees Brennan falls again for me. I thought it had a great concept, which is why I was so disappointed with the actual read of it. The idea that it was about a young lady, she has cancer, she's dying, and she makes a deal with this stranger who comes into her hospital room. And I'm going to do a full review on it later, but basically she ends up in a story, and she ends up being an evil person in the story. It had so much potential. It just didn't flow great, and I had issues with it, which I will explain in my review, which will be coming. It was a disappointment, and I'm really sad that it was a disappointment because the concept of it was fantastic. So if it had been, it could have just been a beautiful story. So, yeah. I mean, I actually wouldn't have minded it if it had been an even darker story. It was a little dark, but it could have been even darker, and it would have been so great. It could have been like almost grimdark, I guess is a good way of putting it. But yeah, but great concept, obviously. And then the book that you'd like to reread, I would like to reread the entire Falcon Falls series again by Brittney. I was sad when it ended. I read the last book this year, and I just wanted to go back and start at the beginning and read it again. Probably won't, because I just won't have the time to do it. But yeah, that's how I'd answer that question. Okay, so then the next question is your reading goal, and just a little reflection. So obviously I read a lot of romance, and didn't really get into diversifying my reading till halfway through into this year. Now, I'm not saying I didn't read any, but I didn't read as much of the other stuff. Oh, coffee. I kind of wanted to, I think I probably read more nonfiction when I was diversifying than I did anything else. So the one thing that YouTube's really done is really opened up my eyes. Now, I had set my goal in Goodreads for 45 books last year. Well, 2024. This year, it's almost done. And I read a little over 80. So I had a good reading year. And I never felt like I killed myself to read that many books. It just naturally flowed because I read every night in bed. I love to just relax, and reading is how I relax. Reading is how I sleep well. It just, I think with some people, when they read, they can't shut off their brain. For me, it's like it just winds it all down, because during the day I'm working hard on my business, and it just kind of closes off everything else and lets me sleep really well. So I will be continuing. I think my goal for 2025, I'm going to set it at 50, which I think is totally doable. That's like just a little over 2 books. What's that? 4 books a month? Yeah, 4 books a month. Completely doable, 100%. The other thing is that when January hits, I will be writing again. So I have second book is in with the editors. That's going to have to I'm going to have to go through that again. And then my third book, I'm going to start writing. Again, I did a little bit of the beginning of it, but I want to change it up a little. So I am going to have to kind of like rewrite that. So when I'm in writing mode, my reading falls a little bit by the wayside, but I don't write all the time. I typically, again, I'll write at night in bed, and I only like to write a couple of nights a week because I find trying to write every single night, it just doesn't flow really well from me. So, you know, I'll still get some reading in, and I'm still going to set my TBR. So the next question is, after 2024, what are you prioritizing? So what I'm going to be prioritizing is the 25 books that I've got that are my must-reads. Okay, so those are going to be, I'm going to concentrate on completing a few series. And I also want to concentrate on clearing off my current Kindle Unlimited. And so I can pull some new books into Kindle Unlimited, which I think is really great. And of course, you know, going to try to bring down my tin bucket that I have. That's going to have a lot of books that I have not read that are sitting on my shelves. So that's going to be my priority. And then obviously, I'm going to have the 50 books that are going to be set in there. Now, I'm going to have a reading challenge that I'm going to do, which I will discuss in my next video, which will be my first TBR for 2025. But yeah, so that's it for me. I don't really have anything else to say. Those are my 20 questions. I think I got them all. Yeah. So hopefully you found that interesting. I mean, I'm not... like I said, I'm not a prolific YouTuber, haven't got a ton of videos behind me, but this year I'm definitely going to be keeping track. Now, I found a wonderful spreadsheet from Cassidy at Covers by Cassidy, Covers with Cassidy, I think. She created this amazing spreadsheet to track your reading. So I will be tracking everything that I read with that spreadsheet. I really, I was astounded when I saw it, like so much hard work she put into that thing. So I'm going to track it that way. And I will be using a reading journal to do my reviews. So I'm going to have, I want to have something that thoroughly I can write down all my thoughts about each book, because I can't remember everything. With writing and with reading, it makes it really hard. But anyways, that's kind of where I'm going with this. So I really hope that you're going to continue with me into 2025. My next video, so this one's going up on the 30th, and then my next video is going to be January 1st. And that is going to be my first video of 2025, and it's going to be my TBR for January. So can't wait to share that with you. Can't wait to share the challenge that I have for myself with that. I also have basically 2 challenges, you know, that I'm going to have through the year, and I'm going to share those with you. And I'd love it if you would like and subscribe. Comment to me how your reading year went. I'd love to hear it. And if any of the books that I read, you read, and how you felt about them. So with all of that, I'm going to say goodbye to 2024, and I'll see you in 2025.